Welcome to our series of videos. So in this video we'll be discussing governance. So we will have to look at the definition of governance. Governance is defined as the way people are ruled. It is about whether the people are ruled with or without their consent. So we'll also talk about the ways in which governance issues can be looked at. So there are basically two ways in which governance issues can be looked at. Either a country is ruled in accordance with democratic or dictatorship principles. So we shall look at that. Governance is an odd humanity. Governance is as old as humanity. All societies on earth have had at least one form of government or another. So all these will be tackled. It is therefore follows that Zambians too had some form of government in pre-colonial era. Societies such as Tumbuka, Tabwa, Ngoni Bemba, Lozi and Lunda were ruled by kings. So these rulers had absolute power over their people. So what do we mean when we say rulers had absolute power over their people? This means that the people were under their rule. The people under their rule were answerable to them. So this is unlike the current way we have democratic governance, whereby the people or the leaders are the ones who are answerable to the people. But in this form, in pre-colonial era, the people were answerable to their rulers. So we can tell that this was a dictatorship kind of government. The king or queen was at the apex of government hierarchy. So apex simply means on top in terms of hierarchy. Below him or her came chiefs, the village headmen or headwomen came right at the bottom, overseeing the villages. We continue. So the family headed by the father was the lowest unit. The village leaders were in charge of villages and presided over the problem which occurred in their villages. So this is still common even in current times. While chiefs were assisted to govern their chiefdoms by officials at the court, village headmen or headwomen relied on selected wise elders. So this is how they were able to resolve their disputes. The judiciary in pre-colonial days differed from one society to another. In most societies, offenders were punished by the local court at the chief's palace, and punishment varied from society to society. So each and every society had a different way on how they were able to punish the offenders. So for example, here in Zambia, among the Bembas, for instance, there was what was called Modimachipura. So this in English is the field cultivated by fools. So this kind of punishment meant to embarrass or humiliate an offender. So this punishment involved the offender. This punishment involved the offender cultivating a special field located in an area where passers-by could easily see the offender working. So this was just aimed at embarrassing and humiliating the offender. So I'm sure if one is embarrassed, then I doubt if they could do the same wrong thing again. So that was the essence of taking these people to the Murimachipuva, where it's a field cultivated by fools. So, however, rulers in many of these pre-colonial societies carried out ruthless punishments. Murderers and wizards or witches would have their hands cut off, or such offenders would be burnt alive. So we can tell that this was a bad kind of government. So this was bad governance and bad justice. Bad governance and bad justice. So we'll continue looking at now the types of governance system. So basically, like I've mentioned earlier, there are two types of governance systems. So these are good governance and bad governance. So in good governance, a government is legitimate, competent, accountable, and respects human rights and the rule of law. So these are just the tenets of good governance. You can't find them where there's bad governance. So good governance should be practiced at a family, school, community, and national levels. So many we mistake this to only expecting good governance to be applied at national levels, but this should also be exhibited even in schools, community, even at church, even at the family level. So for instance, in a school environment, the people appointed as prefects or monitors, class representatives, they need to make sure that they are competent, they are accountable, then they respect the human rights. So this is about good governance. So these elements add up to what most people expect from those who rule over them. Without good governance, social, economic, and political progress is difficult to achieve and impossible to guarantee. So this tells us that it is important to have a good governance. So we'll continue looking at governance systems. So now we look at the importance of governance, good governance. So good governance is important. So let's now look at the importance of good governance. Good governance is important because, so this is now listed down at the importance of good governance. So I'll read them out. It enables citizens to enjoy human rights and freedoms. It makes the government accountable to the people and makes government operations transparent. This is because the people are involved in the running of the country. So good governance is really important. We continue. Citizens have the right to know what the government does for them, or how the leadership intends to solve their problems. So this can only be done where there is good governance. Good governance enables citizens to fully participate in electing leaders of their own choice. Citizens can vote out leaders who fail to perform their duties properly. So this only happens where good governance is. In good governance, the rule of law is observed and the judiciary is independent. So there is no interference on in the operation of the judiciary by or from other organs of the government, the legislature and the executive. So this judiciary operates independently. So we continue. So it is also seen that in good governance, every person is accorded the right to contribute to the making and amendment of the Constitution. All citizens have equal rights before the law. So this only happens in good governance. So pupils can also participate in governance of their schools and communities. So this is usually seen whereby the school appoints the prefects, the head boys, so these take part in governance of their schools. Then it can also be seen at the university level, where each university or most of the universities have got student unions. So you find that the students are represented by their union leadership. So this is an example that students can also participate in governance of their universities or colleges. So they can elect their representatives and vote out those who fail to perform. For instance, they can vote for or vote out prefects, class monitors, club leaders. So this is the reason why we are saying good governance is very important. So now we can look at bad governance. So a bad government is a government which is not legitimate, competent, accountable, and does not respect human rights and the rule of law. So in this kind of governance, you find that government officials break the law with impunity. And this is because they know even if they break the law with impunity, they will not be prosecuted because there is no respect for the rule of law. There is no separation of powers. The executive can interfere with the operations of the judiciary. The legislature can interfere with the operations of the judiciary. So this is the reason why we say bad governance, it's kind of a dictatorship form of government. So it is a government which rules against the wishes of the majority. Dictatorship is a form of bad governance. However, bad governance can also be practiced in a democratically elected government. We've seen this in many governments in the world. Governments can be elected democratically, but as time goes, they change to become a dictatorship or a bad governance. So bad governance kind of government. So we can now talk about the disadvantages of bad governance. So on this one, these are just the opposite of the importance of good governance. For instance, in good governance, there is respect for the rule of law, but in bad governance, there is no respect of rule of law. So such are some of the disadvantages of bad governance. Thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe to our channel.